If you make it out to this park, I'd recommend doing a night ride on the Beast first and foremost. Night rides on this ride are some of the best night rides I've ever experienced anywhere. Welcome to Coaster Mania. I'm Micah, and today I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions on Kings Island. This park was the first park that Katie and I visited together, and I feel it has been somewhat of a large influence on our opinions of other parks we've visited since. We spent roughly 3.5 days at the park, giving us ample opportunity to experience most of what the park has to offer. Kings Island is a major American theme park owned by parent company Cedar Fair and is located about half an hour outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. It has 14 operating roller coasters and has been open since 1972. Since the channel is quite new, I plan on establishing a structure to my reviews to make them easier to digest, and I will also have timestamps in the description to find different parts of the review. I'm breaking this review up into 10 different segments: first impressions, theming, immersion, layout, amenities, food, staff, coasters, flat rides, and finally, operations. Lastly, I will give my overall thoughts on the park. Katie and I did not visit the attached water park, so I will not be including that in the review. Section 1. First impressions. When you first walk up to the front entrance of Kings Island, you go through the security checkpoint. Lines were quick, so I have no complaints about that. The first thing Katie and I noticed was the awful front entrance building. Really, it's an eyesore. Cedar Fair, please do something to either improve it or just get rid of it. After making our way past that, we come up on International Street, which just felt magical. With the Eiffel Tower replica directly in front of you and witnessing the sheer size of Diamondback, Orion, Banshee surrounding you on nearly all sides, it was jaw-dropping. The sights, the sounds, and the smells came together to ensure that both of us knew this was going to be good. I'd rate our first impressions a 10 out of 10, even with the horrible front entrance building. Section 2. Theming. In my opinion, I would say that compared to other parks I have visited, Kings Island has above average theming. It isn't the most thorough, but at the same time, it isn't the most lacking. I personally feel like the newly revamped Area 72 has some of the better theming in the park. The adjacent area, Coney Mall, also looks nice, where it houses many of the park's arcade games as well as a few flat rides and restaurants. The weakest part of the park has to be the action zone, which seems to be loosely themed around extreme sports, as you have the semi-surfing themed shop called Coaster Connection. This area just doesn't cut it for me. Another added touch, which is small but appreciated greatly by me, is the lift hill sound effects found on Mystic Timbers and Banshee. This rare addition to rides is small, but something I've come to greatly appreciate. One other area that theming is great is International Street. The park opens up to a beautiful plaza where the Royal Fountain lies in the center. The buildings lining each side of International Street are beautifully decorated and were certainly helped by the extra decorations added for the Carnival event, as well as this year for the 50th anniversary event. I'm also going to lump in our most recent visit to this park by talking about the fireworks show. This year, 2022, Kings Island put on their 50th anniversary celebration. It was spectacular. The biggest complaint I did have about this, however, was that if you aren't standing in the middle of the path right in front of the front entrance, you won't get a good view of all the special effects going on around you. The fountain had flamethrowers going, there was a drone show to the right of the Eiffel Tower, and fireworks going off to the left of the tower. You can't catch a good view without being in the right spot. The newly done Tower Gardens History Walk is also another great way to learn about the history of Kings Island, with beautiful displays and placards in the ground detailing the major events in the park's 50 years. One other cool detail about this was the fact that there were 50 more blank placards signifying the next 50 years for the park. Overall, I'd rate the theming a 7.5 out of 10. Section 3. Immersion. Moving on from this section is Immersion. This is more of a subjective thing than the previous segment, so feel free to take this with a huge grain of salt, as this may be different for most people. I would say that Kings Island did a great job at keeping me immersed. Much of the park is surrounded by thick woods, meaning that there aren't many views outside the park from within. Once again, Area 72 does a good job at keeping you immersed in its portrayal of a fictional secret military base, with similars to Area 51. I really do appreciate the added touch of the car parked broadcasting the WERD radio show blasting conspiracies non-stop. The theme for Orion, composed by IMA Score, is one of my favorite theme songs to a ride and holds a special place in my heart. Seriously, if anyone gets a hold of the actual audio files for this theme song, I would die to get my hands on it. One thing that helps Kings Island with the immersion is its placement of the rides. Most of the lift hills in this park either face towards the park itself or towards the back where all the forests are. When you're at Kings Island, it almost feels like nowhere else exists. There are a few spots where you can see some defunct rides, like the old Tomb Raider ride near Diamondback, but this can be excused. There is also the opening right next to Area 72 where I was able to easily see the ride warehouses as well as the floats from both the Carnival from last year as well as the 50th anniversary parade floats parked outside of it. If there's any changes I would make, I would say it'd be nice to see those kind of be hidden a little bit more, but overall, I would say that the Kings Island immersion would be rated a 9.5 out of 10. Section 4. Layout. Now let's talk about the layout of the park. Kings Island is set up in a somewhat oval-like shape with a few protrusions around the sides. The park is less long than it is wide, and it's very easy to navigate. The park does err on the larger side and can get somewhat tiring to navigate on a long day, however. But I think the biggest complaint I have about the layout is the unused space. Near the Eiffel Tower and Backlot Stunt Coaster are a few open areas of grass. I am aware that this section of the park was near where Vortex used to stand, which would have helped add some extra flair. However, this area would be vastly helped by an additional eating area, flat ride, or theming elements. Other areas of the park that feel somewhat lackluster and hard to reach simply based on distance and lack of other rides being around would have to be the walkway on the way to the Windseeker, as well as the path leading to the back. At the time of visiting the park in the summer of 2021 and also summer of 2022, it did feel empty next to Windseeker with just a bare wall on the side where Vortex used to stand. The walkway to the Bat is not the easiest to find and takes you through a more heavily wooded area that lacks greatly in the way of theming. Despite these minor complaints, however, getting to the rides that you want to is easy and there are often multiple ways to get to them. I would rate the layout of Kings Island an 8 out of 10. Section 5. Amenities. The amenities that Kings Island offers is somewhat of a mixed bag, but overall are very well thought out and do make for a good experience. Starting out, there are plenty of restaurants located throughout the park that offer a good variety of choices. There are plenty of snack stalls littered around the park, and finding something that you like is an easy task. Many sections of the park have plenty of tree cover and shade, meaning that it is relatively easy to escape the hot summer sun. In many of the ride queues, there are misters that are relatively well maintained and do a decent job at helping keep park visitors cool. Some lines, though, could probably use a little bit more shade, most notably Orion. On the days Katie and I were visiting, park staff were doing a very good job offering free water and making sure that guests knew there was free water if they needed it. On occasion, a few of the restaurant staff even directed us unprompted where to find these stands for water, which was very thoughtful of them. Most of the restaurants also have ample seating and shade, meaning it's an easy way to escape the heat. I did also notice that the shops were also kept very cool, allowing for even more escape from the heat. One minor complaint I have with this park is the locker policy. Most of the major rides do not have bins on the ride platform and do not allow bags inside the queues. I do see the benefits of this policy, however, as it keeps the loading times for rides low and keeps everything else from running efficiently. However, I don't entirely like paying for lockers. If you are planning on visiting this park, I highly recommend experiencing it in chunks and saving your money by renting an all-day locker. It is easiest to place your items in a locker and then experience all or most of the rides in that particular area. I did also find that the park offered plenty of seating areas, meaning you never needed to go far to find some empty spots to sit and relax. Overall, I'd rate the amenities of Kings Island a 9.5 out of 10. Section 6. Food. Moving on to the food offerings at Kings Island, it is a smorgasbord of choices. Katie and I didn't eat at nearly all the restaurants, but we did at least experience quite a few. We first ate tacos at Hank's Mexican Grill. If you've ever eaten at Chipotle, then you know what to expect. This is Chipotle without being called Chipotle. The seating area right outside of this restaurant is super nice and is right next to a small pond near Viking Fury. It's a great spot to catch a break. Next we ate at Coney Barbecue. Great food. It was a bit pricey, but nothing horrible. The food was very far from being a gut bomb. Highly recommend you eat here as well. Chick-fil-A. I don't need to explain this one. Well, wait, maybe I do. Expect paying upwards of $40 for dinner for two. Yikes. We also ate at La Rosa's Pizzeria. This is theme park pizza. Not a major gut bomb, but also not the best pizza you've had either. Finally, we ate at Miami River Brew House. Once again, good food, slightly pricey, but it could have been worse. This and Coney Barbecue have a nice and somewhat quieter atmosphere inside of their buildings. The park has a ton of options for food choices, many of them on the nicer side. I also have to applaud Kings Island for having a lot of healthier choices too. It's not as many as I feel like it could be, but it definitely has choices if you are looking to kind of manage how you're eating while also being at a theme park, which is very difficult. Overall, I'd rate the food offerings a 9.5 out of 10. Section 7, Staff. Let me just say that Kings Island cares about its staff, and it shows. To put this in perspective, one of the nights Katie and I were leaving the park, a team lead was talking to a large group of custodians and cheering on the employees. You could tell with the energy in their voice, as well as the cheering of the employees, that the enthusiasm was genuine. There was not a single unfriendly experience we had with any staff members. Every employee we came across seemed like they enjoyed working at the park and wanted to be there, and even took pride in their own work. They complimented our shirts, were helpful when we had questions, and had positive attitudes. I just hope they're being paid well enough. I'd rate the staff a 10 out of 10. Good job, guys. Section 8, Coasters. Kings Island has arguably one of the best coaster lineups in the country. It has a good mix of new and old, as well as large and small rides. Nearly all of the rides at the park are incredibly well maintained and give me the impression that Kings Island takes pride in their roller coasters. From the aggressive ejector airtime of Mystic Timbers to the huge inversion machine that is Banshee, you have a very well-rounded lineup. This park does have a few cloned rides in Invertigo, Backlot Stunt Coaster, Flight of Fear, and the 3 family coasters. Invertigo is one of my least favorite of these, as well as my least favorite ride in the park due to its roughness and low throughput. I would take a semi-decent flat ride in the plot of land that Invertigo occupies over the rough and unsatisfying experience that it is. Orion, being one of the newest rides in the park, fits in well and does a great job at providing great speed, pacing, and forces. This ride is seriously exhilarating. The only thing I feel like Kings Island is lacking is another large-scale multi-looper. Vortex did initially fill this gap, so I'd be interested to see what Cedar Fair does with the empty plot of land it once stood on. One thing that Kings Island is well known for is its night rides. Whether you're screaming through the pitch black forest on the Beast or climbing to the stars on Orion, there is a ton of rides here that provide an insane night riding experience. If you make it out to this park, I'd recommend doing a night ride on the Beast first and foremost. Night rides on this ride are some of the best night rides I've ever experienced anywhere. Our second night ride on this was also enhanced by the fireflies lighting up on all sides of us. If you haven't experienced going almost 65 miles an hour in pitch black forest with fireflies lighting up around you, you really should consider putting it on your bucket list. I do plan on doing individual reviews for each of the rides at Kings Island, so stay tuned for those videos. I would rate the overall coaster lineup a 9.5 out of 10. Section 9, Flat Rides. Kings Island has a good variety of flat rides, totaling a little over 30. Most of the flat rides are located inside the Camp Snoopy area, meaning that there are just a few more thrilling attractions for older guests. Some of the most notable flat rides here would be the Windseeker, the Drop Tower, as well as the Shake, Rattle, and Roll. Beyond these flat rides, there isn't many others to experience, and this is one area that I feel Kings Island could see the most growth. This park, however, does do a good job at providing a lot of entertaining rides for young kids. In my opinion, Kings Island could use something large and thrilling like an S&S Scream and Swing. This would almost perfectly fit right in the empty field of grass behind the International Showplace Leader and next to the Diamondback maintenance area with plenty of room to spare. Overall, I'd rate the flat rides a 7.5 out of 10. Section 10, Operations. Where Kings Island is at its strongest is in its operations. The ride operators at this park were some of the best and friendliest ride ops I've ever come across. On multiple occasions, they would acknowledge some of the shirts Katie and I were wearing, as we had Silverwood shirts on. They were all extremely pleasant, and you could tell they were well taken care of. This is a park for coaster enthusiasts, run by coaster enthusiasts. Each of the ride-offs were passionate about their jobs, and this just isn't something you see at every park. The other great thing about this park is that in the 4 days we spent there was hardly any downtime for any of the rides. The only major downtime that happened was on the Beast due to some larger work that was being done, but we were still able to catch rides on it at the beginning and end of the trip. I'd rate operations at this park a 10 out of 10. Bringing it all together, I would still say that Kings Island is one of my favorite parks in the country and potentially one of the best. There are a few areas that it can be improved, however all of its elements together make for an amazing park. From the incredibly friendly and accommodating staff around every corner to the look and feel of this park, I can sincerely say I don't believe I've had a better experience anywhere else. If you are planning on going on a coaster trip soon and haven't been to Kings Island, I would seriously recommend putting this park high on your list. Moving through the individual ratings of this park, I gave First Impressions a 10 out of 10, Theming a 7.5 out of 10, Immersion a 9.5 out of 10, Layout an 8 out of 10, Amenities a 9.5, Food a 9.5, Staff a 10, Coasters a 9.5, Flat Rides a 7.5, and finally Operations a 10, which averages about to a 9.1 out of 10. This average score here is very accurate in regards to our actual thoughts on this park. It is near perfect in almost every way, but there is still room for some improvement. There is not a whole lot I could see improving at this park other than a few small tweaks and additions. There isn't many places as special in the US as Kings Island, and I think it should be on any coaster enthusiast bucket list. Thank you so much for watching this review of Kings Island. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, feel free to leave a like and comment below and consider subscribing. I intend on uploading more content as time goes on, and as Katie and I experience more parks and coasters. You can also find semi-daily uploads on our Instagram page at Coaster Mania. Soon we will be opening an Etsy page where you will be able to buy prints and more of some of your favorite coaster photography of ours. Thanks for watching the video, and ride on, Coaster Maniacs!